Good afternoon and welcome to our Oak Bend Medical Center Happy Hour podcast. My name is Donna and I am your host. Well, summer is actually here. And if you'll remember, we talked to Chief Graig Temple not too long ago about Fort Bend County EMS and all the service they are involved in. But we forgot something. We didn't talk about the Fort Bend County Drowning Prevention Coalition. And we want to address those things today. Chief Temple, it is great to have you back. And we are very excited to hear about your programs that you have offering.
Thanks for having us. And we really do appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and to all the citizens that are listening because the coalition is fairly new. We've only been up and running for a couple months now. And so we've got a lot of information we'd like to present today.
Over the years, we've always heard the unfortunate about children drowning and even adults drowning. Have we seen it increase over the years?
So we started collecting these numbers back in 2016. And over the course of time, from 2016 till present, we saw the numbers start to decline, and then all of a sudden they took a sharp rise. So to give you the statistics, in 2016, we had 21 drownings. 2017 was 24. 2018 was 15 drowning. So we started to see a decline there. 2019 was our best year with only 8. But then in 2020, it jumped up to 27. And actually, this year, we've had 2 near drownings thus far. So the numbers fluctuate up and down. However, when you think about how preventable a drowning is, any number above 1 is too high as far as we're concerned, because these things they're accidents, they're things that are preventable, and lots of times it just takes us to keep a keen awareness of what's going on around us to prevent it or to react and actually save someone very quickly.
So I'm assuming with the growth in Fort Bend County and pools, people are having pools in their yards more and more, so you don't have the lifeguards and all of that available. What are some of the signs that a person would be drowning?
Well, the easiest ones are distress. You know, when you look at drownings, they typically happen in 2 manners. There's an active drowning, where someone's in distress, they're smacking the water, they're trying to keep their head above water. It looks very violent. And that's the one that typically people key in on very quickly. But there's also the passive drownings where the person is so exhausted and so tired that their head's just going under the water. So you need to be aware of both. You need to be, paying attention to, especially with kids who like to play. They play shark and they want to swim at the bottom of the pool, and before you know it, they don't surface because something has happened. And so you need to really be paying attention that anytime someone's underwater, they should be surfacing in a few seconds.
So I would gather, and we'll talk about children right now, but I know this applies to both children and adults. I know that a lot of adults put the little water wings on or use blow ups or the water noodles for their kids to swim in the swimming pool. And that way they feel like they don't have to watch if it's closely.
Right.
Are those really that effective?
They're really not. They're meant to be an aid, a swim aid or a floating aid. They're absolutely not life-saving equipment. And a lot of people misconstrue that. They think that those things are, since they have buoyancy and they do provide some lift, that they're acceptable. However, those water wings can slip off. So that's something we worry about, is that people have a false sense of security. That, as you mentioned, they put the water wings on, they send the child out to the pool and, go swimming and keep your floaties on. That's not protection. And that's really, again, that's one of those preventable causes, is that we have to keep our eyes on those children. And we do need to make sure that we're teaching them how to swim at an early age and how to float. If there is a problem, they can somewhat self-rescue until an adult can get to them and help.
Some people say, well, my child's been through swimming lessons. They're great swimmers. I don't really need to worry about them in the water. Would you think that's an accurate assumption or?
Yeah, not at all. Drownings occur at all ages. Oftentimes when you look at drownings, some of them occur because of medical reasons. Someone maybe has a history of seizures or the diabetic, or maybe even dove in and hit their head, but there's a mechanism for causing the drownings. And then the other ones are just the accidental drownings where the person is swimming, they get tired, in pools, the kids think it's safe and, they've been the shallow end, they can stand up and things like that, but it's still not preventable. So out of all of our drownings, 61% of our drownings have occurred in children ages 1 through 5. The other percentages have been, people in their teens, 20s, all the way up to their 60s. So drownings happen at all ages. You can't let your guard down. Just because someone has had, especially children, have had swim lessons, we still have to be monitoring them.
If someone is drowning, what steps should we take to help them?
Well, there's an old saying, I know back when I was in Boy Scouts, they used to say, reach, try to reach with them, with an object. So lots of times pools will have, the big metal pole. So you can reach that pole out to the person and they should be able to grab it and you can pull them in. You can throw a life ring or a PFD to them. And if it is a residential pool, you can obviously go in to help them. A lot of our pool drownings, the victim has been rescued by bystanders immediately, okay, because everybody's willing to jump in that pool. Open water, that's a little bit different story. If you're talking about lakes and things like that. But that's a good rule of thumb is if you can reach them with an object, something that's not going to pull you in the water, but you can actually reach them and they can help themselves get out. That would be the preference. And then obviously throwing them a flotation device, something to just help them keep their head above water until other help can get there or until you can get out to them.
So summer is here, and I know we've been talking about swimming pools, but we also, like you said, have the rivers, the beaches, and lakes. And I know, especially like in the Brazos, there's so much stuff floating in the Brazos and little whirlpools and currents, even at the beach. What are your suggestions for safety there?
Obviously, we want to keep ourselves in areas that are monitored. So your public pool, your private pools, that's where most people enjoy their time. When you go down to the beach, whether it's Galveston or some of the other beach communities, some are guarded, which obviously we would want our families, especially with children, to be near guarded beaches. But if you're not, and this applies to pools as well, if you're not at a guarded pool or a guarded beach, you do need to assign someone to watch the water. And this is very hard for us in the 21st century where, we've got cell phones and iPads and things like that. And we get distracted very easily and we don't pay attention. So you have to assign someone to be a water watcher and really pay attention. Count the people in the water and make sure that we have everybody. Because it's so easy for someone to slip underneath the water, and especially, as you're mentioning with some of our tidal waters, they're not clear. You can't see when someone goes underwater like a pool. So they're going to be missing for a lot longer before we realize that someone has submerged. So pay attention to that. But that's an easy tip for folks to be more aware and more cognizant of what's going on under the water.
So I kind of skipped right over it, so I'm going to digress just a little bit. So exactly what is the Fort Bend County Drowning Prevention Coalition? Okay. Yep. And why was it formed and what does it do?
Well, as we watched those numbers that I gave you earlier and started to see the rise again in drownings across the county, I truly felt that this was a public health emergency. And when we were talking with Dr. Minter at HHS, we approached the judge's office and let them know where the drowning numbers were and that we needed to act. And the best way we can do that is by creating a public-private partnership. The county somewhat being a guiding force in bringing together our private partners. So what we did is I put a call to action out to our local swim clubs and explained our numbers. We had a kickoff meeting where we had several of our swim clubs, and I'll mention them individually here in a moment. But they were on, and they were absolutely ready and willing to jump into action to help curb these numbers and to bring those drowning numbers down. So on top of our private partners, the YMCA has recently joined us, the Houston YMCA. We also have county departments, the Office of Emergency Management, the Judge's Office. We have a representative from Fort Bend County Sheriff's Office Dispatch that's helping us as well. Obviously EMS. And then our partners for the coalition consist of the Goldfish Swim School of Fulshear and Katy. We have the Houston Swim Club, the Texas Swim Club. We have swim labs out of Sugar Land, and then the YMCA from Houston. So each of those private entities have representation on our coalition. We're building plans for future things this summer, trying to offer like an orientation for families. Each of them reported that during COVID, last year during COVID, all of their registrations declined significantly. And people were not venturing out. They were not teaching their kids to swim and things like that, obviously because of the lockdowns and just the situation that we were dealing with. This summer, completely different. We're going to be out in the public more. We're going to be enjoying the summer and enjoying the pools. You mentioned that the pool construction has increased significantly, and that is wonderful that people want to put pools at their homes and things like that, but pools aren't regulated to the extent that you would think, and we don't have them listed in our computer-aided dispatch. So when you have a drowning at your house, if you don't give us a complete address, we're going to have difficulty in locating your home. So public pools, again, are more known to the community. However, if you go to your local HOA pool, do you know the address to that pool? And that was one of our first initiatives that we put out on our social media site, is that those HOA pools, those community pools, the pools that are in your apartment complexes, they really need to have an address sign and a phone number that's readily available there on site. So if you're visiting and you don't know where that address is, you can provide that address from the sign, and that will get the paramedics and the fire departments there to you much faster. So our initiatives throughout the next several weeks, we're going to put basically a video or a tip, some type of resource out to our folks that follow our social medias. Every week, we'll put something out to try to help, again, spread the message of water safety, spread the message of get your children trained in swimming and floating, and hopefully we'll see these numbers decline.
That is wonderful, and something that is well needed, because it's always sad when you have to deal with an issue like that. And we said we were going to quickly talk about adults and stuff. I'm sure that drinking and horsing around and all of that plays a part in this with adults.
Yes, it does. As we get older, we think we're more indestructible, and we can play with those kids and swim underwater just as long and hold our breath longer and things like that. And that is something that you do need to realize, is that we all have limitations, especially those that have some underlying medical conditions. You do need to use caution. As you're out enjoying the summer weather and it's hot and things like that, you need to stay hydrated. We don't want you to be nearing heat exhaustion or even heat stroke and then jumping in the pool thinking you're going to cool off, and then you end up having a medical emergency. Again, I mentioned earlier, diabetics, people that have a history of seizures or epilepsy. We oftentimes run into cases like that. So it's good to have someone with you. Don't swim alone. Swim at least in pairs. That's always good. But again, if you've got some underlying problems, just be careful, be cautious, enjoy yourself. But it's not time to play chicken in the pool, and the next thing you know, you're falling and hitting your head on the concrete, or injuring your ankle or shoulder or anything like that, just pace yourself and enjoy it. So that way we don't have to get called and see you on your worst day.
So all this information, is it already up on the website?
We've been putting information out. On top of each of our partners, you can visit their social media sites and their websites as well. But you can go to our Facebook site, which is Fort Bend County EMS, or you can go to our website, which is www.fbcems.org. And those things will populate on there. As we post them on our social media, you can find them in both places. And again, if I can run through this list again, the Goldfish Swim School of Fulshear and also Katy, the Houston Swim Club, the Texas Swim Club, Swim Labs of Sugar Land, and then the YMCA of Houston. Any of their websites will have information on there to help guide you. There's even a federal site called poolsafely.gov, and that has resources as well, and it also has it in multiple languages. So you can, again, since Fort Bend's very diverse, we can print that off and publish it in multiple languages. So there's plenty of resources out there. And again, if anybody has any questions, they can contact us directly and we can pass that information on.
Chief Temple, I hope that everybody has listened today. Do like Fort Bend County EMS on Facebook. They're always putting out some great information, and it's a way to keep up with all the programs they offer. They do some amazing things. If you see them out in the public, thank them for their service. It is an amazing group of people that aren't just ambulance drivers. Anything else, Chief Temple?
Well, we appreciate the opportunity to work so closely with Oak Bend to again, get this message out. And we thank you for what you do as well.
Thank you. And I want to thank you for joining us today. And a big thank you to our listeners for tuning in. Beginning now, set an intention and a relentless focus on living your life as the greatest person you can be in all situations.
Thank you for joining us today on Oak Bend Medical Center Happy Hour podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's broadcast and invite you to email us at oakbendhappyhourpodcast@obmc.org with any questions or topics that you would like for us to cover. Remember, you can find us here each Friday at 5. Until next week, be mindful and stay healthy.